Hi everyone, it's Margaret with Creative Stamping with Margaret. Thanks for joining me today. I've got a fun card for us. This is a fun little shaker card, and this features the Playing in the Rain bundle, which you can find in the mini catalog. That's the January through April 2023 mini catalog. You'll find the Playing in the Rain bundle on page 51. I'm also using the Rain or Shine Designer Series paper, which is also on that same page in the catalog. This is one of the cards featured from the March class to go, plus the in-person classes. So we each month I hold a class and feature a particular bundle. Most of the time I try to focus on one bundle, and this month it was the Playing in the Rain bundle. And this is just a fun card. Then on the inside we kept it simple by just stamping some of the umbrellas on the front. So let's get started on making this card. So the materials that you need for this card, don't worry about writing dimensions. I'm not even going to give them to you verbally. I will post all of the dimensions along with the list of materials in the description of this video. At a later date, I'll also post it on my blog, so you'll have two locations where you can find it. So just sort of sit back, follow along, watch the assembly, and then at a later time, refer back to the cutting dimensions and the materials used. So for this, we're using Balmy Blue as our card base. We also have another piece of Balmy Blue, and this we will use to cut with the frames. We have our interior piece. We have a scrap of black and a scrap of white. We also have the Raindrops designer piece from the Designer Series paper. And that's the Rain or Shine Designer Series paper. I have a piece of Smoky Slate that has been cut to use as the base when we build our shaker card. And then of course this is a faux shaker card in that instead of window sheet I'm using our clear envelope. So we have that. Then also from the Designer Series paper I have the fox and I have the little dog. The other items you're going to need are the For Everything Fancy Sequins. You will find the pack of sequins on page 141 in the annual catalog. They come in a pack of 3, so you get a pack of sequins in blue colors, pinks, and greens. So this is really nice to add to your Stampin' Up order because you can use it for a variety of shaker cards. The dies that we are using from the Rain or Shine die set, we're using the little bridge, and that's what we will cut the scrap of basic black with. Then there is a die that aligns and matches our little fox. So we'll just line that up and run that through our die cutting machine. Then from the annual catalog you will need the stitched rectangle dies, and as you notice I have the 2 larger dies and I have placed them. I'm going to put a piece of post-it note tape on there just to hold them together, because what you will do, you'll take that blue panel of your Balmy Blue, you'll lay those on there as such, run that through your die cutting machine, and depending upon your die cutting machine you may need to send it through a couple times, and I also will tilt it a little in there so that it hits the pressure on those rollers is a little different on each machine, so that way it gave me a nice clean cut. So after cutting, this is what you will get. So you'll have the 3 pieces, you'll have that outside piece. You can set that aside, use it for another time. Same for the interior piece. Save that, use that in another card, because all we need for this card is the frame. And then I have moved ahead, and I did pre-cut my black for my little gate, and I pre-cut my fox, so he's ready. You'll also need the little dog from the designer series paper, and unfortunately there's not a die for them, so you'll have to fussy cut, which I have already done. It's very easy to fussy cut him. Just grab your paper snips and just hold your blade and then just sort of turn the paper and go around and move around him. You can leave a little border and then just move around and cut him. But as you see, it's fairly easy to cut. And if you do have one of the electronic die cutting machines, such as a scan and cut or a silhouette, you can use the scanning feature on there to scan and cut him as well. But as you see, it goes fairly quickly, just cutting, and you can decide how far you want to go in with that umbrella and around his body, but you just sort of move along. But since I've already got one, I'm going to set that aside so we can get started and get this card finished for you. As far as stamps that we're going to use, we have the umbrella from the Playing in the Rain stamp set. That's for our envelope, as I showed, and our interior piece. We need the raindrops, and then of course the sentiment, rainy days are better with you. I'm using Memento Black ink, Smoky Slate, and Balmy Blue. And then the other item you'll also need is a little sponger, or you could use your blending brush if you want. But I've done that on the sentiment. I found it was easier just to sponge around the edge. You'll see how we do that in just a moment. You will also need the cloud punch. And if you do not have the cloud punch, you can just cut around and make a cloud shape around your sentiment. But the punch works perfect with the size of this sentiment. You're also going to need tear and tape, dimensionals, as well as just some regular Scotch tape. And you'll see where that comes into play as we move forward with the card. So let's get started on this assembly. So the first thing we want to do, let me put my sample here so I can see what I need to do as I move forward making this card. So we're going to take our bone folder and go ahead and burnish and fold our card base. We'll set that to the side along with our gray Smoky Slate layering panel. So now we want to pull in our designer series paper and the clear envelope. Now you want to pay attention that your raindrops are falling in the right direction. I noticed on this particular card, on my sample, I was not paying attention, so my raindrops are a little larger and get smaller as they fall. But unless you look closely, you're not even going to notice that. I'm blaming it on allergies. As you can tell from my voice, I'm a little bit congested. Allergies have hit me big time this season. I even sort of lost my voice for a few days and have finally gotten some of it back, but it is still just a mess. So you're going to bring in your fussy cut, the little dog that you have fussy cut, and you're also going to pull in the bridge. And I found that the liquid glue worked great on this. You could also put the adhesive sheet on the back prior to cutting it, this little bridge if you wanted, but I just am adding little dots of adhesive along the back of my bridge. Just sort of smearing it in some of these areas. Just trying to keep a few little dots or a small little line of glue. Shaker cards are a lot of fun to make, and then this little faux shaker card, as I call it, makes it simpler. Now you've got this frame, so what I like to do is I like to put the frame to see about how much it's going to cover. So I need to lift this, oh, I would say about not quite a quarter, probably about 1/8 of an inch up on the lower edge, and sort of position that where you would like it. And of course I've left a little space on the side where I'm going to adhere our dog. And I did not cut real good around his neck. Let me go ahead and cut that a little bit more. Get a little bit more of that cut out. We'll just trim around. There, that's a little bit better. So let's take and put some liquid glue on the back of the little dog. And I'm not trying to get it too close to the edge, because once I press it down, the glue will mash out and go on the sides, and that way it will not go out too far and get on the paper. So I want him to look like he's standing on the bridge, so I'm going to place his feet where he's standing on the outside edge of the bridge. You could layer him behind, but I thought he got lost when I did that, so I pulled him to the front. So now the fun part. We're going to put the prepared sheet of designer series paper inside of our clear envelope. You're going to press that down and make sure it's down in one of the corners and that the right angles are all pressed in, and press nicely along the bottom as much as you can. And then this is when you're going to go ahead and add some of your sequins. And you want to add them into the front part, since that's where they're going to be. And there, I think that's a good portion. So I put 2 pinches of sequins in there. And so now I'm going to turn this over. We're going to remove that strip that's protecting the adhesive and go ahead and press and close the back of the envelope so that it aligns with the edge of that paper. So see, now we've created a frame around that. And now with the part that overhangs, this is where your Scotch tape comes into play. So I like to take and fold a little right angle. See how I make that little angle and then fold that in. That just gives me a nicer fold of the excess on the edge. Take a piece of Scotch tape and just adhere that down. And I'm going to do the same on this edge. I'm going to fold it in. almost like you do when you're wrapping a package and you want to have nice corners. You do the same thing. You fold the tab to create a little right angle, and that way you get a nice flow on the back. So now we have our shaker portion for the inside. So this is when you're going to want to bring in your tearing tape. I found it works better than the liquid glue or the Stampin' Seal, because those I found I was just not getting as good adherence to this acetate or whatever this plastic material is that these clear envelopes are made from. And so I'm putting tearing tape on all 4 sides. Of that, the back of that. So now let's go ahead and bring in the Smoky Slate panel. And we're just remove the backing from our tearing tape. I don't know about you, but I have had such an issue with allergies this year. It started, of course, spring started early in Georgia. February was unseasonably warm, so all the pollen came early. And then we had this cold snap recently, which slowed it down, and now it's warming up again. So it's the trees and different things that were blooming had sort of come to a halt, and now they're coming back. So I may be congested for the next month or two. I've been taking all types of allergy medicines to try to ward it off, but I did not start early enough. Okay, so now we're going to center this onto our panel. See how nicely that fits? Next, let's take our liquid adhesive. And I like to use the liquid adhesive when I have paper that has a lot with it that I want a real strong adhesive on. So that's why I tend to use that. Plus the liquid adhesive gives me just a little bit more play that I don't get with the Stampin' Seal. But I do use the Stampin' Seal as well. Depends on how critical it is for a particular item to be held. Now we're going to pull in our Stampin' Dimensionals and our little fox here that was cut from the Designer Series paper. And we're going to pop him up on dimensionals. And then I'm placing him where, if you see on the card here, he's right by the edge of that other gate. And I'm going to lift. Well, actually, I noticed I put him on after I put the frame. So let me set him aside, and let's go and add this frame before I forget to do that. So we'll go ahead and add this frame to our card front. And there again, I'm using the multi-purpose liquid glue, and just as I did with the little gate, or the little bridge I should say, that I put on the inside, I'm just doing a thin line of the glue around the edges. This will hold it in place. Plus it gives me that play when I go to place it on here to get that frame in. And then that aligns perfectly on there. When I was thinking of doing a shaker card using this set, I knew I wanted to do a frame, and I just really liked the look of the frame, the rectangular frame around this, creating this little scene. Now is when you'll place your little fox on there where he's right at the edge of that bridge. Then the last thing for the front is to pull in your scrap of paper, and we're taking the sentiment, rainy days are better with you. Our memento, we're going to stamp that. Let me move this over. Pull in our cloud punch. We have that punched. So next, bring in the raindrops and the Balmy Blue. And I'm stamping off before I stamp the raindrops across the sentiment. Next is our Smoky Slate, and I'm using my little sponge dauber, and I'm just going to daub around the edges to make that look sort of like a storm cloud. You could also come back and add a little bit more Balmy Blue if you wanted, but I thought just this was enough to sort of make it look like a little bit of a storm cloud. And we've also propped that up on our card front using dimensionals. So there, we've completed the exterior of our little shaker card. Rainy days are better with you. Then for your interior panel in your envelope, just pull in your black. And I'm not going to do the envelope. You'll get the feel for how I'm doing it with the interior of the card, but just be sure to try to repeat that if you want to embellish your envelope. So I'm just inking this up, and I'm going up the side with umbrellas going in different directions. I just thought that was such a cute touch to add. On this one I only put 3. I spaced them a little bit differently, but on the one I just did, I've done the 4, which you could even carry it on both sides depending upon how much room you wanted to write with your sentiment. And so for coloring this, I'm just using the Flirty Flamingo blends. Just a quick little swipe of color, nothing fancy. I'm not taking my time on this, as you see. Sometimes I think we try to be too perfect with it, and it looks just as good when you sort of just swipe and leave a little white with it. Creates a little interest. Then we'll just add this to the inside of our card, and we will have completed our shaker card using the Playing in the Rain bundle and the Rain or Shine Designer Series paper. And then I do have another envelope finished. So we have our 2 envelopes. We have our set. With our cute little dog and fox playing in the rain. So this is Margaret Knight with Creative Stamping with Margaret. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this shaker card and that you will have fun replicating this card or getting creative and using some of the other characters that you'll find in the Designer Series paper and building a little scene and make a shaker card out of that. But again, this is Margaret Knight with Creative Stamping with Margaret. Thanks for joining me. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and look for more videos on my channel as well. Have a great day.